painting an abstract interpretation of a lilac-breasted roller, while beginning with a compelling hook, is less about rigid technique and more about translating observation, emotion, and symbolism into a visual language that feels alive. So you might begin your piece not with a brushstroke, but with a line of thought that pulls the viewer into your process. Something like imagining the sudden flash of iridescent wings cutting through the warm African sky. A fleeting moment where color seems to break free from the body of the bird itself, because that sense of motion and brilliance is what you want to capture abstractly rather than the literal anatomy of the lilac-breasted roller. And from there, you let your canvas become a field where color relationships tell the story, starting perhaps with a loose wash of background tones that evoke the environment, soft ochres, dusty pinks, or even pale turquoise to suggest atmosphere rather than place. Allowing the paint to move freely, drip, blend, and bloom as you tilt the surface, because abstraction thrives when control is balanced with chance. And as the base layer dries or partially sets, you begin to introduce the signature hues associated with the bird, those electric lilacs, deep indigos, flashes of teal and green. But instead of outlining a bird shape, you think in terms of energy and movement, placing strokes where the eye should travel, building arcs or bursts that hint at wings in motion. Perhaps using a palette knife for sharper, unpredictable marks or a wide brush for sweeping gestures. And throughout this process, you stay mindful of contrast, not just in color but in texture, letting some areas remain thin and translucent, while others build into thick impasto ridges that catch the light, because that tactile variation gives your abstract piece a physical presence that echoes the vitality of the bird. And as you layer these colors, you might scrape back into them, revealing earlier tones beneath, creating a sense of depth and history that mirrors how memory works when recalling something vivid yet fleeting, like spotting a lilac-breasted roller in the wild. And at some point, you may feel tempted to define the subject more clearly. Perhaps using a palette knife for sharper, unpredictable marks or a wide brush for sweeping gestures. And throughout this process, you stay mindful of contrast, not just in color but in texture, letting some areas remain thin and translucent, while others build into thick impasto ridges that catch the light, because that tactile variation gives your abstract piece a physical presence that echoes the vitality of the bird. And as you layer these colors, you might scrape back into them, revealing earlier tones beneath, creating a sense of depth and history that mirrors how memory works when recalling something vivid yet fleeting, like spotting a lilac-breasted roller in the wild. And at some point, you may feel tempted to define the subject more clearly, to anchor the abstraction with a recognizable form, but resist the urge to fully resolve it, instead allowing just enough suggestion, maybe a curved line that could be a beak or a cluster of strokes that imply an eye, so that the viewer completes the image in their own mind, which is where abstraction becomes interactive. And to deepen the composition, you can introduce unexpected elements, perhaps splatters or fine lines that radiate outward like echoes of movement, or even subtle geometric shapes beneath the organic forms to create tension between structure and spontaneity. And color harmony plays a crucial role here. So you might deliberately juxtapose complementary tones like orange against blue to make certain areas vibrate visually, guiding attention without dictating interpretation. And as you step back frequently to assess the balance of the piece, you consider not just what is on the canvas but what is left out, because negative space in abstract art is as powerful as the painted areas, giving the eye a place to rest and the composition room to breathe. And throughout this evolving process, your initial hook continues to inform your decisions, that idea of a flash of color in motion. So every mark you make should in some way serve that sensation, whether through direction, intensity, or rhythm. And rhythm is another key aspect, almost like visual music, where repeated shapes or colors create patterns that the eye follows, building a sense of cohesion even in apparent chaos. And if you feel the painting becoming too controlled or predictable, you can disrupt it intentionally, introducing a bold, contrasting stroke or even partially obscuring an area you previously liked, because abstraction often benefits from moments of risk that push the work beyond safe choices. And as the layers accumulate, you might experiment with different tools beyond brushes, using cloth to dab and lift paint, or even your fingers to smudge and blend edges, creating a more intimate connection with the surface. And all the while you are translating not just the appearance of the lilac-breasted roller, but your emotional response to it. The excitement, the surprise, the beauty of encountering such vivid color in nature, which means the final piece does not need to be immediately recognizable to be successful. It only needs to convey that sense of wonder and dynamism. And when you feel the composition is nearing completion, you can refine certain areas, sharpening edges, or intensifying colors to create focal points, ensuring that the viewer's eye moves through the painting in a deliberate yet fluid way. And then comes the crucial decision of when to stop, because overworking can dull the spontaneity that gives abstract art its power. So you step back, observe the balance of color, form, and energy, and ask whether the piece still feels alive, whether it still carries that initial spark you began with. And if it does, you let it be, accepting that abstraction is as much about what is unresolved as what is defined. And in this way, your painting becomes not just an image of a lilac-breasted roller, but an interpretation of its essence, a visual echo of its movement and color translated into your own artistic language, shaped by intuition, experimentation, and a willingness to embrace both control and unpredictability in equal measure.